So the rumor is that you want to learn Microsoft Exchange for free. You've come to the right place. Hi there, fellow YouTubers. Andy Malone, Microsoft MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. This time around, we're going back to Microsoft 365 and specifically Microsoft Exchange to discuss how mail flow works. For some, it's a little bit of a mystery. So today, I'm going to clear that mystery up. All right. Now, just to remind you, if you like what you see, go ahead, click on that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you won't miss on any future postings. And as always, I really do welcome your comments and questions below. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get to it. So as ever, we're kicking off in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Now, just before I want to take you to Mailflow, I've got an important thing just to mention. I'm going to go into the Admin Center here. And in the Admin Center, I'm going to click on Show All, and then I'm going to come down into Settings. A little while ago, I've done videos on multi-factor authentication. Now, this is so important because it reduces the chance of password theft, credentials, identity fraud by up to 99%. And I just wanted to make you aware, actually, if you go into the organizational settings here, and in the organization settings, if you scroll right down, and obviously, in the past, I've shown you multi-factor authentication, and if you're not using that, definitely go ahead and switch that on. But the other thing I wanted to mention was this, modern authentication. Modern authentication essentially is the use of the OAuth protocol, Open Authentication version 2. And you can see here, turn on modern authentication. Essentially, modern authentication, OAuth, OpenID Connect, are protocols that support multi-factor authentication. If you don't have modern authentication or support for OAuth, then potentially you're using older clients, which just rely on the username and password. And this is a major security flaw because it means that if your password is hacked, anybody can get into your account. So do yourself a favor, go in and switch these options off, okay? So again, these old protocols, make sure that you switch them off, okay? So again, things like IMAP and Post Office Protocol version 3 rather. These are important that you switch those off, okay? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our main demo. And for this, of course, I'm going to come into Microsoft Exchange. And this is Exchange Online. Just give it a second to come up. Great. Now, this is the new Admin Center in Microsoft 365. And in previous videos, I've showed you how to configure things like recipients and so on. If you've not seen those videos, I'll put a link to those in here. What I want to specifically follow up on today is mail flow. So mail flow has a number of really interesting areas, all intended to assist with how mail flows in and out of your organization. So first of all, we have a tool at the top here. This used to be known in older versions as message tracking. It's now called message trace, and it's had a recent update, as you can see. So what we have some nice default queries here. You can create custom queries. You can have auto-saved queries, so anything that you've done and you've saved. And you can also download reports from all of these. So what Microsoft have done is they've looked at probably some of the most popular queries. And let's have a look at this one here. Now, so messages sent from my primary domain in the last day. So the star means all. So all emails from tenant.onmicrosoft.com to recipients, all That means it's going to every recipient. And the time range you can see is 1 day. Andy, how far can I go with that? You can trace it back to 90 days past, actually. Then you've got detailed search options here. So you can pull up specific types of reports. So you can just have a summary report, for example, which gives you instant online access. You can then have an enhanced summary report, and that's downloadable as a comma-separated value file. And you can also have an extended report, which gives you much more detail. So again, if you make any changes here, go ahead and click on the Save button. So what I can now do is I can click on Search, and it will now go off and it will search for any emails that has been sent in the last day. Now, in this case, I've actually not gone ahead and sent any, but I can go back and obviously restore that and go back even further. So Message Trace is a really nice not only a troubleshooting tool actually, but also it's just a great tool just to make sure did that messages get through and so on. So this is definitely something that you want to look at. And as I've said, you can easily go in and create your own custom queries, and it's so easy to use. Okay, so this is what we mean by Message Trace. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with Outlook rules. So if you're using any email provider, Outlook or whatever, you have an option of rules for your inbox. So what rules in Exchange Online are for rules for every mailbox user. Now, as always, you'll see that this is the new portal, but this is actually the old portal. It's not actually been fully updated yet. But you can see that we have a few kind of default options here that you can set up. Now, rules basically can affect either users, groups, or multiple mailboxes. So you can see that we have a number of default rules already created. But as I said, you can easily go and create your own. So for example, here, protect with OME. So Outlook Message Encryption. Outlook Message Encryption is a really nice feature. And OME, basically it says here, you can see that if the message contains the following words, then protect this file with OME. So you can go in and, of course, make sure, by the way, that you've got the appropriate license for some of these. Okay, so I can go ahead, oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. I can go ahead into rules and I can say, hey, I'm going to create a new rule, or you can go into any of these and actually edit these if you want to. So for example, here, install an exclaimer. So I'll call this my Oslo disclaimer. Okay. And I can say, do you want to append the disclaimer? Do you want to forward the message for approval? Do you want to redirect the message? Or do you want to redirect the message with an explanation? So you see what I mean? If the message comes from a specific user, then apply this particular rule. Okay. So name, we'll give the name, and then it says, okay, apply this rule if the sender is. So what we can do is we can now select a sender. And I've got a user here called Alan. So if Alan sends anything, and again, you can do it by group or by user or what have you. And I can check that name. You can see the fact that it's gone blue shows me that it's okay. So I can say, I'm going to say any emails from Alan, apply this rule if that sender is Alan. And what I'm going to do, if the sender is Alan, then I'm going to append the disclaimer. I'm going to put a disclaimer in. And it says here, you can see I can either enter the text. So I can say, what's the disclaimer? Okay, this is a disclaimer. Okay, and you can obviously terms and conditions. It can be really anything that you want it to be. So once you've selected that, you can then say if the disclaimer can't be inserted in this place, it can. So basically what we're doing, we now have the properties of this rule, and you can say audit the rule with a sensitivity level. So you can say, right, well, if Alan sends anything and he's appended the disclaimer, I'm going to put that as medium security, okay, medium severity. And you can choose a mode for this rule. So I can some rules you can enforce, some rules you can just recommend. So I've said the sender is, and again I can choose Alan, okay, and I can then say click OK, and then what I can do is I can click on the drop down arrow and I can say, hey, the receiver is, let's say, Brian. Okay, and I'm going to add in Brian and click OK. So I've added in the sender and I've added in the receiver, and I've said, okay, do the following, append this message. And any of the text, do I want it wrapped? Do I want to, am I going to allow the user to ignore it, or am I going to allow the user to reject it? So I'll just say ignore in this case. So I'm going to click on save, and you can now see that I've done this particular rule. Now, this could be anything really. It could be, any important messages from your local tax authority, then forward them to the accounting department and things like that. So like I said, you get a bunch of pre kind of configured ones. Certainly in my demo I do anyway. So you can see here moderation for Lydia Holloway. So basically any emails sent to Lydia, then we've set up what we call a moderator, so that they'll go to a supervisor or a group or somebody who's managing that mailbox first. Right, okay, so that is just a little bit about the rules. So the key difference here is that these rules can affect multiple users and groups and can apply in certain conditions. So the next two, we're talking about mail flow. So you can see here in remote domains that it's basically saying, who am I allowed to send mail out to? And by default, it's sending it out to this asterisk, which means all. So you can see I can set some rules here as well. So things like if you're using automatic replies or automatic forwarding, and you can select those reply types. You can also edit the name of the domain. So by default, I'm only doing one rule. It's called the default domain. But again, I could add in another remote domain. So for example, if you were working with a partner and you wanted to block emails from a certain domain, you could block them by adding them here. Now, the other things that we also have here is message reporting. And I'm sure you're aware that in most email applications, Outlook included, you can request a delivery report. So, did my recipient receive my message? NDAs, or non-delivery reports, are basically what we call bounce back messages. So if you type in any name at anycompany.com, you might get a bounce back message that says, this user is no longer in this company, etc. The problem with that is a lot of hackers use this to check that, hey, I've got the right domain, I've got the right mailbox, it's getting through here. So watch out for that, because in many cases you can pretty much guess somebody's email address. So many companies block NDRs, okay? So you can go in here and I can actually say, no, I'm going to block non-delivery reports, okay? You can also allow things like meeting forward notifications. You can add those in. Okay, then it's talking about email reply types. So are you going to allow external out of the office messages? Are you going to allow automatic replies? Or are you not going to allow those things? Again, bearing in mind that all of these can increase the amount of traffic on a network. Then we have your formats. So what format do you want the email to be sent with? And to be honest, there's, again, not really any reasons to change this. Okay, so there we have it. You have got your remote domains. So again, by default, it's set to I can communicate with everyone. Likewise, you can also configure accepted domains. So this is you. So am I going to allow email to come in to me? And you can see it's authoritative. So I only have one domain name here. Now, if you let's say you were a group of companies, well, what you would need to do is you would need to go into the domains page, which is in the 365 admin center here. And you can either get to that through setup or you can go through the organizational settings. So you can see I can go ahead and I can add in my additional domain name here. And once you've done that, then you can say, yes, I'm going to allow my company to receive email from that domain name. But basically, you configure this in the domains name page. Now, just to remind you, there are three types of DNS record. An MX record is a mail exchanger. That means this server is authoritative to send and receive email. A CNAME record or alias record that's going to something like autodiscover.outlook.com is really for auto configuration of things like Outlook. And the last of the three records is really what we call an SPF record, and it's used for spam filtering. So if you're using, for example, Exchange Online Protection, or if you're using Windows Defender to defend against things like anti-spyware, anti-malware, antivirus, and so on, you're going to need these records in. So those three records, MX record, mail exchanger, you've got your CNAME record or your alias record, and again, you've got that SPF record that I mentioned. So heading back to the Exchange Admin Center, as I said, really two very important tabs. Remote domains, basically, who can I communicate with? And essentially, it's everybody. So if you want to restrict that, you can do. If you want to accept mail from specific organizations, again, you can set that up here. Accepting email from specific organizations, again, that means that, if you're only using one, then to be honest, there's not really any reason to change this. Next is the connectors tab, and the connectors tab, again, if you're a single organization in 365, you shouldn't really have any requirement to change this. However, if you're in, for example, a hybrid scenario where you have an Exchange server on premises, or you're working with a business partner or another organization, then it is possible to go in here and run this very nice wizard, and you basically say, where do you want to connect from and connect to? So for example, let's say I'm connecting from Office 365 to let's say it's your organization's email server, and then you would just essentially go through the wizard, and you would basically just give the connection a name, so connect one or connect me. In fact, I'll just type in that. So I'll call it connect me. You can put in a little description. Obviously, you want to turn this on, and again, I'll say next. So the use of the connector, I'm going to say it's for the use of email messages sent to all accepted domains in your organization, or only when I have the transport rule, redirect this message to this connector. So this is quite useful if you've got, let's say you're a group of companies. So you've got bobsboats.com and you've maybe got sales.bobsboats.com. So I could say anything to sales.bobsboats.com goes through this connector to this server environment. Okay. So again, then it will ask you for your hosts DNS name. So you can see here myhost.mycompany.com, or typically the IP address of an Exchange server or a partner server. Once you've done that, click on next. It will ask for authentication. So usernames, passwords, authentication. Then there will be a validate button. And once the connection has been validated, that's it. The connector is up and running, and it's really simple to use. Okay, but as I've said, in most cases, you really don't need to worry that much about it. Finally, we've got the two alerts here. Now, in past videos, I've talked about security alerts and things like that. These are really specific to Exchange. And you can see I've got a couple of default alerts here. So for example, let me know if any messages have been delayed. That could indicate potential hacking, but it also could indicate a transport problem. For example, a server might be down or something like that. So that's quite a useful one. Now, if I just open this one up, you can, as you can see, you can put in a description. I can enable that policy, and you can also set a severity level of the policy, so low, medium, and high. If I go into the settings, you can say, okay, send an email to this notification, to either this user or this group. So again, you might have a support Teams group or something like that. Do you want to set the limitation on the number of emails that you can send per day? And again, you can set a threshold for that as well. So in other words, send the number of queued messages, let me know that there's something wrong if the queued message is over a 2,000. That's quite high actually. For me, I would probably bring that down just a little bit. Okay, but in essence, that's what we do. So we go ahead and we set that policy up. And here in the alerts tab, you can see that if there have been any alerts which that policy has hit, this is where that alert would come. And you could then go into the alert and be notified of what happened. And then you could make an appropriate decision on what to do. You can also export all the alerts, and you can export them into a CSV file, and not just for 7 days, but in fact you can actually go beyond 90 days if you want to. All right, so there you go, just mail flow in Microsoft 365. For the most part, there's not a lot to do, but again, sometimes it's good just to know what these things are and ultimately how they work. So there you have it, mail flow in Microsoft 365 and Exchange Online. Fabulous stuff. So if you like what you've seen, go ahead, click on that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you won't miss out on any future postings. And as always, I love your questions and your feedback. In fact, this whole session was because of one of you guys. You asked for it. So you ask, I deliver. Okay, until next time, you stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and click on the subscribe button and ring that bell, and you won't miss a thing. See you next time.